The stars in the galaxy stretched endlessly before them. Every star represented a world, a civilization, or a distant unknown. For centuries, humanity had explored space with curiosity, pushing the boundaries of what was possible. Yet there was one place that was off-limits, a place that even the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy feared: the quantum realm. The quantum realm was a mysterious, forbidden place. It was not a planet or a star system. It wasn't even a regular part of space. It existed in a space between spaces, a dimension that no one fully understood. Some called it a void, while others whispered that it was a place where time and reality were bent and broken. It was said that those who entered the quantum realm never returned the same, if they returned at all. For years, the Galactic Council, the most powerful group of alien races, had warned humanity to stay away. They spoke of its dangers, of the ancient forces that lay within, waiting to be disturbed. All the great empires of the galaxy avoided it, their ships turning away when they got too close. It was a place of caution, and most beings believed it was better to leave it undisturbed. But humanity, driven by an unyielding thirst for discovery, saw things differently. It started with a single probe. Earth's scientists had been studying the quantum realm for years, sending unmanned ships into its mysterious edges to gather data. The first few attempts were simple. They sent out robotic probes, hoping to gather any information they could about what lay beyond. But each time, the probes went silent. No data, no response, just a deep, unending silence. That didn't stop humanity. They were determined. Their ambition and hunger for knowledge pushed them further than any other species had dared to go. After all, how could they let the unknown stay forever locked away? How could they resist the pull of discovery? One day, Earth launched its most advanced ship yet, a sleek vessel known as the Odyssey. It was equipped with the latest technology, capable of withstanding the unknown dangers of the quantum realm. It was the ship that would break the boundaries, that would enter the forbidden space, and return with the answers humanity had longed for. As the Odyssey left Earth's orbit, there was a palpable sense of excitement. The crew was made up of the best and brightest minds, those who had spent their entire lives studying the quantum realm. They were nervous, but they were also eager. They knew they were about to make history. The ship passed through the asteroid belt, then the outer edges of the solar system, and finally into the deep black void of space. The Odyssey set its course directly for the heart of the quantum realm. It was a journey that would take them into uncharted territory, a place that no one had ever been and come back from. As they approached, a thick fog of uncertainty loomed. Every sensor on the ship buzzed with warning signals. The crew, however, was determined to press forward. The further they went, the stranger things became. Time felt slower, stretched out. Space itself seemed to bend and ripple around them. At first, the crew thought it was just the technology of the ship working to protect them, but soon it became clear that this was something far more powerful. The Odyssey was being pulled into something much larger, something beyond their comprehension. Then, something incredible happened. As they entered deeper into the quantum realm, the ship's sensors picked up a strange, steady pulse. It was a signal, not like anything they had encountered before. It was a rhythmic beat, like a heart, but it wasn't coming from any planet or star. It was coming from somewhere in the heart of the quantum realm, a source of energy they couldn't trace. "We found it," said Captain Rhea Albright, her voice steady but filled with awe. "This is it." The crew couldn't believe it. They were on the edge of a discovery that would change the fate of humanity. The quantum realm wasn't just a void, it was alive. And somewhere inside it, there was something that had been waiting, hidden for centuries. As the Odyssey ventured further, they could see strange, shimmering lights in the distance. It wasn't just energy. It was something solid, something built. The crew stared in disbelief as an enormous structure began to emerge from the misty depths. It was a city, ancient, long forgotten, and impossibly advanced. The ship's systems failed to register anything like it. It wasn't on any map, nor did it match anything humanity had ever seen. "Captain, what is that?" one of the crew members whispered. Rhea squinted her eyes as she looked out the window, the first human to lay eyes on the mysterious city. It was massive, with towering spires, floating platforms, and glowing symbols that pulsed in sync with the strange beat they had heard. It was as if this city had been waiting for them. It was unlike anything they had ever imagined, a structure so advanced it seemed almost magical. Suddenly, the ship's systems began to flash warning lights. The ship shook violently. The crew scrambled to their stations, but it was clear something had changed. Something was wrong. "The energy, it's building up," the ship's engineer shouted, his face pale. A moment later, a blinding light filled the ship, and the crew was thrown into darkness. The Odyssey was in the heart of the quantum realm, and what they found there was beyond anything they could have ever imagined. The unknown had just become a reality. And now, it was clear, they had uncovered a force far more powerful than they could control, and something told them that this was just the beginning. This 800-word opening sets the stage for a thrilling journey into the unknown, introducing the quantum realm and establishing the mystery, danger, and excitement that will follow. It builds anticipation and suspense, ensuring that the audience will stay hooked for what's to come. The Odyssey had been shaken by the blinding light, and for a few moments, the crew sat in stunned silence. The eerie glow from the strange city still lingered in their eyes, leaving them disoriented. The ship's systems came back online one by one, their screens flickering to life with the familiar hum of machinery. But this time, something was different. The ship was no longer in control. It was as if the very space around them had shifted. "Report." Captain Rhea Albright's voice broke through the confusion, sharp and commanding. "Captain, we're not where we were before," the navigation officer responded, his fingers flying across the control panel. His face turned pale as he stared at the new readings. "We've been pulled somewhere else. I don't know how, but we're deeper into the quantum realm. Much deeper." Rhea took a deep breath, trying to steady herself. This was no longer just a mission of exploration. It had become something far more dangerous. The quantum realm was a place of uncertainty, a space where the rules of reality itself seemed to bend. She had known this, but nothing could have prepared her for this moment. The strange city outside the window grew larger as they drifted closer. It looked untouched by time, an ancient metropolis that hummed with an energy they couldn't comprehend. The symbols carved into the buildings glowed faintly, their meaning lost to them. It was clear that whatever civilization had built this city was long gone, yet the city was still alive, as if waiting for someone, or something, to awaken it. "Captain, we're being pulled toward it," the ship's engineer, Lieutenant Torres, said, his voice thick with tension. "Whatever is in that city, it's affecting our systems. We can't break free." Rhea's eyes narrowed. She could feel the shift in the atmosphere. Something had changed. The ship's systems were no longer just reacting. They were responding to something outside, a power they couldn't explain. "Can you counteract it?" she asked, keeping her voice steady despite the unease creeping up her spine. Torres shook his head. "No, Captain. The pull is too strong. We need to find out what's causing it, or we're going to be dragged in." The Odyssey continued its descent toward the city, every second adding to the growing sense of dread. The crew had no choice but to watch, helpless, as their ship glided closer to the unknown. The city loomed larger, its towering spires rising from the mist, like giants waiting for their moment. And then, just as suddenly as the light had appeared, the pull stopped. The ship hung in midair, hovering in front of the city's massive gates. The silence was deafening. "What the hell just happened?" Lieutenant Torres muttered, his hands trembling as he tried to regain control of the ship. Before anyone could respond, the massive gates of the city slowly began to open. A deep rumbling echoed through the ship, vibrating the hull as if the city itself were alive, waking from a long slumber. Is it welcoming us? Someone whispered. Rhea didn't respond. She couldn't. Her instincts told her to be cautious, but curiosity was a powerful force. The city was old, older than any civilization they had known. Yet it was not abandoned. It was alive, waiting. What secrets could it hold? A voice crackled through the comms, breaking the silence. Captain, it was the voice of Lieutenant Grant, the communications officer. I'm picking up a transmission. It's strange. It's not from our ship, and it's not from any known alien frequency. Rhea's heart skipped a beat. She moved quickly to the communications panel, her breath shallow. The transmission was faint, but it was there. A deep, rhythmic sound echoed through the ship's speakers. It was like a heartbeat, slow but steady. And then, it changed. The frequency shifted, and for the briefest moment, a voice emerged. Humanity. The voice rasped, as though it had been waiting a long time to speak. You have come to claim what was never yours. The crew froze. The words hung in the air, heavy and ominous. Humanity had come for something it wasn't supposed to have. The question lingered. What had they awoken? Captain, the ship's sensors are picking up strange energy fluctuations around the city. Torres reported urgently. It's like the entire place is reacting to us. Rhea nodded. We need to go inside. We're too close to turn back now. With a final look at her crew, she made the decision that would alter the course of humanity's future. The Odyssey slowly began to move forward, its engines roaring to life. The crew held their breath as they entered the heart of the city, crossing the threshold of the unknown. The city loomed ahead, its towering spires casting long shadows over them. As the ship moved deeper into the heart of the ancient metropolis, the eerie pulse grew louder. It was a force they could not understand, but it was undeniable. The city was alive, and it was aware of their presence. Humanity had crossed the line. The forbidden realm had been breached, and now there was no turning back. The universe was about to learn the consequences of underestimating humans. But even as they crossed into the heart of the city, Rhea couldn't shake the feeling that they weren't the first to come here. The city felt, watched, and the pulse. It felt like a warning. What had they awakened? And would humanity survive the consequences of their actio? The Odyssey slowly glided through the grand gates, moving deeper into the city, surrounded by colossal towers that seemed to pierce the very sky. The architecture was unlike anything humanity had ever seen. The buildings were tall and sleek, with intricate patterns carved into every surface, glowing faintly in the dim light. The streets below were wide, lined with columns that reached up like the fingers of giants, each one pulsing with an eerie energy that made the crew feel like intruders. The ship touched down gently in a large open area, surrounded by towering structures that hummed with a strange energy. The landing was smooth, but the crew could sense the growing tension. The moment they had entered the city, the environment had changed. Something had shifted. The air felt thicker, charged with a strange static that made every hair on their bodies stand on end. It was as though the city itself was aware of their presence, watching them closely. Rhea stood up from her command chair, her eyes fixed on the darkened structures outside the windows. Everyone stay alert. This isn't a friendly place, and I don't trust anything we're seeing right now. The crew quickly went to work, preparing for the next phase of their mission. The strange transmission they had picked up earlier still lingered in their minds, the cryptic message echoing in their thoughts. Humanity, you have come to claim what was never yours. Grant, the communications officer, was still focused on the strange signal, his eyes glued to the monitor. Captain, the transmission is still active. It's not clear where it's coming from, but the frequency is getting stronger. Rhea's eyes narrowed. It's almost like it's calling to us. We need to find the source. Torres, the ship's engineer, joined them at the comm panel. Captain, the ship's systems are starting to react to the energy fluctuations around us. It's like the entire city is resonating with our presence. We're in uncharted territory, Rhea replied, her voice steady despite the unease she felt growing inside her. Get ready. We're going in. Everyone suits up and stay close. We don't know what's waiting for us out there. The crew gathered their gear, their hearts racing as they prepared to disembark from the ship. They knew the risks. This wasn't just a mission of exploration anymore. It was a step into the unknown, and the very air around them seemed to be alive with tension. As they disembarked from the ship and stepped onto the ground, a strange sensation filled the air. It was as if they were walking on a different plane of existence. The city's immense structures loomed over them, and the pulsing energy from the buildings seemed to vibrate through their bones. The silence was suffocating, broken only by the occasional hum of the city itself, as though it was waiting, watching. Rhea took a deep breath, leading the way. The crew moved carefully, their steps echoing in the silence. They walked down wide, deserted streets, passing by monumental arches and towering walls, all covered in the same mysterious symbols. It was clear that whatever civilization had once lived here, it was far beyond anything humanity had ever known. This place is ancient, Torres muttered, examining the carvings on the walls. But it feels alive, like it's watching us. I don't like it, Grant said, his voice tense. Every time I try to get a clear reading, the signal changes. It's like it's adjusting to us. Rhea didn't respond, her eyes scanning their surroundings. She could feel it too. The city was reacting to their presence, and it was becoming increasingly clear that they were not alone. The air seemed thick with unseen eyes, as though something, or someone, was watching them from the shadows. Suddenly, the ground beneath their feet trembled. The entire city seemed to vibrate, and a low guttural rumble echoed from deep within the earth. The crew froze, weapons drawn, but there was no immediate danger, just a deep, foreboding sound that sent chills through their spines. Then, without warning, the pulse of energy around them intensified. The ground shook again, and the distant buildings seemed to come to life, their lights flickering to life one by one. The humming sound grew louder, a mechanical sound mixed with a biological pulse, like a heartbeat. It was coming from everywhere, above, below, and around them. "This is it," Rhea whispered to herself, barely audible over the rising noise. "Whatever this city is, it's alive, and it knows we're here." Suddenly, a voice rang out through the air, this time much clearer than before. The words echoed through the city, reverberating off the massive stone structures around them. "Humanity, you dare enter the realm that was never meant for you." The voice was deep and ancient, with a power that made Rhea's heart pound in her chest. "The consequences of your actions are beyond your understanding. You are not welcome here." The crew looked at each other, wide-eyed, as the voice seemed to come from nowhere yet everywhere at once. Rhea took a step forward, her hand gripping her sidearm tightly. "We didn't come here to fight. We came to explore." The voice echoed again, this time louder, the words almost a warning. "You were not invited, but you will soon learn the price of your intrusion." The ground trembled beneath their feet, and the city seemed to respond, the energy pulsing faster, stronger. Something had awakened, something that had been dormant for millennia, and it was angry. The city was alive, and it was not going to let them leave without facing the consequences of their actions. The ground beneath their boots rumbled again, more violently this time. The air felt electric, charged with an energy that made the crew's hairs stand on end. Rhea motioned for everyone to take cover behind one of the large stone columns lining the streets. They ducked quickly, eyes scanning the surroundings, but the city seemed still, eerily still. The only sound was the deep hum that resonated from the heart of the city, vibrating through their bones. "We need to keep moving," Rhea said, her voice firm but strained. "Whatever this is, it's not just a warning. Something is coming." But as she spoke, the ground beneath them shifted again, and a sudden blast of energy shot through the air. The brilliant, Blinding light erupted from the towering structures, illuminating everything in sight. It felt like the city itself had come alive, its pulse quickening, its anger rising. The energy was overwhelming, and the crew staggered back, shielding their eyes from the light. "Captain, we're not going to make it if this keeps up," Grant said, his voice shaking. He was holding onto the control panel attached to his wrist, trying to analyze the situation. "This isn't just a city, it's a weapon, a living weapon." Torres, still crouched behind the column, looked over at Rhea, his expression grave. "Whatever we've triggered, it's not something we can fight. We need to figure out how to turn this off before we're all vaporized." Rhea's mind raced, piecing together the pieces of the puzzle. The mysterious energy, the cryptic message, the city's strange behavior, it was all connected. And they had just stirred something ancient, something powerful, something that was not meant to be disturbed. "Everyone, focus," Rhea snapped. "We can't leave. We have to figure out what this city is hiding. There's more to this place than just technology. There's something alive here, and I intend to find out what it is." They moved forward, sticking close to the towering structures, trying to avoid the beams of energy flashing in all directions. The city seemed to breathe, its walls shifting, the energy pulsating like a living thing. It was as if the very air was thick with danger, each step forward feeling heavier than the last. Their weapons, once an assurance, now felt like toys in the face of the unknown force awakening around them. Then, as if the city itself was listening, the ground suddenly ceased its shaking. The light dimmed, but the hum in the air grew louder, more persistent. A deep voice echoed once again, this time so close that it sent a shiver down their spines. "You have trespassed in the domain of the elders," the voice boomed. It was ancient and full of power, reverberating off the walls of the city. "The consequences of your actions are inevitable. You will pay the price for disturbing the peace that has lasted eons." Rhea swallowed hard, her fingers tightening around the grip of her weapon. They had walked into something far beyond their understanding, something much older and more dangerous than they had ever imagined. "Who are you?" Rhea called out, her voice steady despite the fear that gripped her. "What are you? What do you want from us?" The city responded in a sudden burst of sound, as though it were laughing at their ignorance. "We are the guardians of this realm," the voice declared, its tone filled with disdain. "You do not belong here. The very fabric of your existence is an offense to the order we have preserved." Rhea exchanged a look with her crew. They had no idea what they were up against. The message was clear. Humanity was not welcome here, but that only raised more questions. Why? Why were they being singled out? What had they done to provoke such wrath? Suddenly, a distant rumbling echoed, and the ground began to shake once again. This time, it was different. The shaking was rhythmic, like the beating of a heart, and in the distance, a dark shadow emerged from the depths of the city. Rhea's eyes widened. A massive shape was moving toward them. Something large, something powerful. As it neared, she could make out the shape of a towering creature, covered in glowing runes, its body seemingly composed of the very energy that had been pulsing throughout the city. It was a being of pure power, its movements slow but deliberate, each step causing the ground to tremble. Its eyes glowed with an eerie light, fixed on the crew with an almost predatory gaze. "This is not just a city," Rhea whispered, realizing the truth with growing horror. "This is a prison, and we've just awakened the Elder." The creature's presence was overwhelming, a silent force that radiated authority and ancient power. It was as though the very air bent to its will, the energy in the city aligning with its movements. The crew stood frozen, unsure whether to fight or flee, as the towering being slowly approached. Rhea scanned the scene quickly, her mind racing for a solution. The Elder's presence loomed closer, and the city's energy surged, making the walls crack and groan in mourning. Without thinking, she grabbed Torres' arm and pulled him back. "This isn't a dead end. There's something here, something we can use." Grant and Torres exchanged confused glances, but Rhea was already moving toward a small ledge, tucked beneath a crumbled archway. She knelt beside it, tracing her fingers along the stone. The surface was etched with strange, glowing symbols, ones they hadn't seen before. "Is this?" Grant whispered, stepping closer. Rhea nodded. "I think it's a door, a hidden passage. This city was built to keep people out, but it was also built to escape. We're not the first to run from something here." The air around them hummed again, louder now, the energy of the Elder pressing in on them from all sides. It was coming for them. But this was their chance. Their only chance. "Help me," Rhea ordered, her voice commanding. Together, they pulled at the stones around the ledge, revealing a narrow, dark passage. It led deep into the bowels of the city, the air heavy with ancient dust and stale air. There was no telling what lay ahead, but it was better than the wrath of the Elder. Grant looked at Rhea, his face full of worry. "Are you sure about this?" Rhea didn't hesitate. "We don't have a choice. If we don't get out of here, we won't have a chance at all." Without another word, she led the way, crawling through the narrow passage, her heart pounding in her chest. Behind her, she could hear the others scrambling to follow. But she could also hear something else, something far more dangerous. The hum of energy from the Elder, growing louder, closer. They were running out of time. The Elder would find them. And when it did, they would be facing the full fury of an ancient power they could never hope to defeat. The darkness of the hidden passage swallowed them whole as they crawled through, their hands scraping against the cold, rough stone. The only light came from the faint glow of their equipment, casting eerie shadows on the walls. The sound of their breathing echoed in the cramped space, mixing with the faint hum of energy that seemed to pulse through the very foundation of the city. Rhea's mind raced as she led the way through the narrow, twisting corridor. It felt like they were crawling deeper and deeper into the heart of the ancient city, a place that no human had ever been. She could feel the oppressive weight of the city around her, as though it were alive, watching them with eyes they couldn't see. Behind her, the others were struggling to keep up. Torres' heavy breathing grew louder, his voice strained. "How much further, Rhea?" Rhea paused for a moment, her eyes scanning the path ahead. The narrow passage seemed to stretch on forever, and she had no idea how far they still had to go. The pressure of their situation hung over them like a suffocating blanket, the knowledge that the Elder was still pursuing them, growing closer with every passing second. "I don't know," she admitted, her voice tight with frustration. "But we have to keep moving. There's no turning back now." As they crawled, the air grew colder, the walls slick with moisture. The strange symbols that had been carved into the stone glowed faintly, casting an eerie light on the path ahead. Rhea couldn't shake the feeling that they were moving toward something far more dangerous than they had imagined. Suddenly, Grant, who had been silent up until now, spoke up. "What if this is a trap?" His voice was low, filled with unease. "What if we're just walking straight into the heart of whatever is hunting us?" Rhea didn't stop. She knew what Grant was implying. The passage could very well lead them to a dead end, or worse, into the grip of the Elder. But she couldn't afford to think about that now. Every instinct told her that this was their only chance. If they turned back now, they would be caught for sure. "We don't have a choice," Rhea said, her voice steady but tinged with the fear she was doing her best to hide. "We keep moving forward, or we die here." The air in the chamber crackled with tension, the oppressive weight of the Elder's presence pressing down on the crew. They could feel it in their bones, a power so ancient and primal, it made the hair on the back of their necks stand on end. The energy around them was so thick, it was almost suffocating. Rhea's heart pounded in her chest. She could hear the crew's heavy breathing, their footsteps unsteady as they tried to comprehend what was happening. Grant's hand was on his weapon, his knuckles white with tension. Torres and Kamala stood close, their eyes scanning the room for any possible way out. But there was no escape. The voice of the Elder resonated through the chamber again, its tone cold, and filled with a terrifying certainty. You cannot run from me. You should never have entered my domain. Rhea clenched her fists, her mind racing. She had to think. There had to be something, some way to escape, or even better, to fight back. The Elder was powerful, too powerful. But what if there was a way to turn the tide in their favor? What if this was all part of the city's trap? We're not going to die here, Rhea said, her voice barely a whisper, but it was enough to rally the others. The crew looked at her, their fear evident, but there was a glimmer of hope in their eyes. They trusted her. Rhea had led them this far. Now they had to trust her to get them out of this. Rhea's eyes scanned the chamber, her mind piecing together the puzzle. The strange structure in the center of the room. Was it a weapon? Or perhaps a key to understanding the Elder's power? She needed to figure it out before it was too late. The Elder's voice boomed once more, this time laced with frustration. You think you can understand my power? You have no idea what you are dealing with. This city is my creation, my sanctuary. You have disturbed forces you cannot control. As the Elder's words echoed in the chamber, a strange, low hum filled the air. The structure in the center of the room began to vibrate. The symbols etched into its surface pulsed with light, casting eerie shadows across the walls. Rhea felt the air shift around her. A sudden realization struck her like a lightning bolt. The structure, the energy, it wasn't just a part of the Elder's domain. It was the key. The very source of the Elder's power was tied to this place, and if they could destroy it, they could weaken the Elder. But how? The structure was too complex, and the energy was far too unstable. They didn't have the time or the resources to figure it out completely. Then, an idea formed in Rhea's mind. If the Elder had created this place, perhaps they could turn the very creation against him. They had to destroy the structure, or at least disrupt it enough to break the Elder's hold over the city. But they couldn't do it alone. They needed the energy in the room to work in their favor. Grant, Rhea said urgently, Kamala, Torres, get ready. We have one shot at this. The crew looked at her, their eyes wide with confusion. But they trusted her. Kamala stepped forward, her weapon at the ready, while Torres took a deep breath and scanned the room for anything that could help. Rhea didn't waste any time. She pulled up the data on her wristpad, a map of the city's energy grid. As she studied it, the pieces started to fall into place. The city's power source was connected directly to the structure. If they could find a way to redirect the energy, they could overload it. The question was, how? Torres, we need to reach the central energy conduit, Rhea ordered. It's the only way to cut the flow of power to the structure. Torres nodded without hesitation and ran toward the far side of the chamber, his boots echoing against the stone. Kamala moved in the opposite direction, her movements precise and deliberate. They had a plan, and they would follow it through, no matter the cost. Rhea turned her attention back to the center of the room, where the structure continued to pulse with energy. The Elder's voice echoed again, more frantic this time. You cannot do this. I will not let you. The energy in the room surged, a wave of raw power that nearly knocked Rhea off her feet. She staggered but caught herself, her heart racing. This was it, the final moment. They had to disrupt the flow of energy, or face the consequences. She pressed a button on her wristpad, and the hidden interface on the side of the chamber flickered to life. A series of lights blinked on, and a deep rumble reverberated through the room. For a moment, everything seemed to stop, time itself holding its breath. Then, with a loud crack, the structure shuddered violently. The energy began to warp, bending and twisting like it was being pulled apart. Rhea watched as the symbols on the surface of the structure flickered, their glow fading. No, the Elder screamed, his voice filled with rage and disbelief. The crew worked in tandem, their hands moving with precision as they activated the conduits and systems they had identified. The energy levels spiked, then began to overload. Sparks flew from the walls, and the floor trembled beneath their feet. The elder's voice faded, replaced by an unearthly shriek of pure rage. Suddenly, everything exploded in a brilliant burst of light. The energy in the room reached a critical mass, and for a split second, Rhea saw the elder's form, flickering, distorted, before it disappeared entirely. The room fell silent. The hum of the city's power faded, and the oppressive atmosphere lifted. Rhea and the crew stood there, their breaths shallow, as they tried to comprehend what had just happened. They had done it. They had defeated the Elder, at least for now. But the victory came with a price. The city was unstable. The structure had been destroyed, and the energy network was in chaos. They had no way of knowing what would happen next, but one thing was clear. They had changed the balance of power in the galaxy forever. Rhea looked at her crew, a sense of relief washing over her. They had survived. For now.